Peace, peace and blessings. Hope that everybody is doing well today. I'm just going to really just talk what's on my mind and just chill for real. I mean, it's gonna be a pretty laid back experience, right? So, if you're catching a replay, welcome. But yeah, I would say, this past week, a lot of relationship stuff have been coming up. Just different experiences, different things that have happened in the past coming to the surface. And some of those more shadow aspects or, situations, conflicts that that brought out or have brought out the aspects of myself that I experience discomfort with, right? And I would say the biggest thing that's really been on my mind is understanding where I'm at for myself, understanding the things that matter to me in this time, understanding the things that, I want to entertain and don't want to entertain, reflecting on, what obligations I have to others. And it's always interesting. I feel that, relationships are the most complex thing about the human experience. Um, and ever since I've been on my spiritual journey, they've only become more complex. You know what I'm saying? Like back in the day when I was a younger person, you know, I kind of just like found myself in relationships and let them flow as they, flowed. And, um, I didn't necessarily have a depth of reflection around them. And I will say that, my relationships with women, right, intimate relationships. So that's probably the biggest area of, conflict. And I think naturally, I feel like that's pretty natural for a person to experience a lot of their conflict as relationship goes with, the opposite sex. Right. I think that's the nature of, the creative tension. But in the past, I've struggled with being a people pleaser, right? Doing for others before I do for myself. Um, Taking others' word over my own. Taking other people's perception as, law and fact in my life. And I really began to lose myself in that, I would say, emotionally. So a lot of my process has been returning to myself and, you know, the reason I journal so much, right, is essentially I get to talk to myself. I get to reason with myself, you know. What is it that's on my mind, you know? A lot of times I would do just voice memos, right? I would record voice memos, go for a drive and record a voice memo. And that was very therapeutic for me, and something that helped me out a lot, honestly. Let me uh let me adjust this here so I can lay back. All right, cool. But yeah, like I was saying, that helped me out a lot, honestly. Just being able to take a drive, and record voice memos, listen to music. I would say that my journey has been pretty. Um, it's been pretty, internal, and I think that is the nature of the spiritual experience. But what I mean is that a lot of the things that I've done has been, with myself. That was where a lot of the work needed to be done, as opposed to, focusing on my external relationships. I'm more of an introverted person. Another thing that's been on my mind too is like personality assessments, things like astrology and uh, I forget the different types of. I feel like it's two different types of personality tests that I'm thinking of. But then you got things like human design. You got the concept of multiple intelligences. And I use a lot of these things, I use a lot of these things to, really get a broader perspective of my experience and just like more wisdom on myself, honestly. And, as I began to go deeper into these things, I was able to confirm, what fits. And I think they're pretty accurate for the most part, I would say. But there's always something that, like that wasn't what I relied on. Like I don't rely on astrology, my chart, or these personality tests or anything like that. But I do think that they give a nice perspective of how we interact in different social dynamics. And I've had a challenge with that, just figuring out my space, my mode of operation where not only am I comfortable and fully expressed, but that, you know, whatever other parties involved are in the same space. And pretty much been a non-confrontational person for most of my life. I pretty much stayed to myself. But I found myself in these different conflicts, right? Found myself in my own reflection, bringing up different times where I was in conflict with another party. And I think that what these personality tests allow me to do is it's all about boundaries, right? It's all about energy. It's all about boundaries. Uh, the chakras was real big along my journey to that understanding of the energy of the body and the energy field. But I say that to say that I think each of us, I mean, I know that each of us has a invisible field of energy around us. Most simplest form is body heat, right? If you're sitting close enough to someone else, you can feel their body heat, right? And another example, hopefully it is pleasant, but the sense of smell, right? You can't see smell, you can't see body heat, but it's there, and when you enter into a person's space, you are able to perceive it, right? But I think it goes deeper than that. You know what I'm saying? A person's emotions, a person's demeanor, their mood. I get around somebody and they, not in a good mood. They may be sad or very angry. I know that sometimes I experience discomfort with that. Oftentimes I experience discomfort with that. You know, I'm pretty receptive to other people's emotions and just energy at large. But as I was saying, I feel that each of us has this energy field around us, right? And that based on our personality, our passions, what it is that we're here to do in life, our gifts, things that challenge us, our energy field moves and shapes and morphs and transforms in different types of ways. Right? So the concept in astrology of you know, um, fixed, the the other two are slipping my mind in this moment. Fixed, mutable, and what's the other one? Let me see. Go to trusty Google here. Cardinal, right? Cardinal. That's right. Fixed, mutable, cardinal, right? So that the physical shape of, a cardinal sign, for example, being that these are the beginning or the initiators of, a particular season, I would imagine they move in a particular direction, move in a particular way. I imagine the fixed signs being fixed in the nature of their element, you know, and that mutable is a very, dynamic energy field. Just as an example, right? Like I said, I don't rely solely on astrology, but this can be, multiple intelligence, for example. If you're not familiar with that concept, it's basically like people can be smart in music, they can be smart in math, they can be smart in, or I should say, intelligent. They could be intelligent in knowing themselves and reflecting on existential things. They can be intelligent in interacting with other people, right? It's talking about like strengths, like where do you show a an above average aptitude, right? What are the different areas of life, right? So multiple intelligences, as opposed to having one type of intelligence that we base ourselves off of, which is like logic, reason, math and science, right? That you can be intelligent in other things as well. Uh, and I think as I interact with different people, I just see the imprints of different things, like the elements of nature. One of the books that I got down in the description is Malidoma Somé's The Healing Wisdom of Africa. And in that book, there's a portion of the book where he talks about the different people, the different tribes of people within his community, right? Within Burkina Faso in West Africa, right? This concept that they have a cosmology where they are water people, mineral people, nature people, fire people, you know, uh, water people, if I didn't say that, and air, something like that, right? Now, these people have different roles, that the water people, for example, are people who tend to lean towards reconciliation and peacefulness, right? that the mineral people tend to be the people who remember a lot of things and they tell a lot of stories, right? The fire people being the ones who are oriented towards, a lot of energy and activity, the connection to the ancestor realm, the spiritual realm. So you have these different, ways of operating within a community. And I think that is the design of the Most High, right? Because if we look at the cell, right, there are different parts of the cell and they all have different roles, but yet it comes together as this fundamental thing of life. Or if we take it outwardly and we look at the solar system, each planet, has a position, it has, certain characteristics, and they all flow together to create the solar system, right? And I think that humans are no different. Each of us have these different ways of being that, dictate the type of experiences that we have and, just how we move through life at large. But I think in today's world, as opposed to, ancient Africa or traditional and natural culture, individuality and individualism are the primary focuses, right? Individuality being something that is natural and healthy. Individualism being, where you get into situations where, people are just like, I can do everything by myself. I don't need any help, right? Things like that, where it's not really, productive or healthy, or, that can express itself as, greed, right? Bringing other people down to lift yourself up, to this top dog position, right? But that being the focus, I think some of the things that we're definitely lacking in the world, particularly in the black community, is compassion and empathy. And the ability to be different without conflict, or to find productivity within our differences, right? I notice that a lot of time if somebody is different or somebody has a different way of viewing the world, becomes a conflict. Now I see you as opposition. You know? And if I see you as opposition, of course I'm not going to empathize with you. I'm not going to hear you out. I'm not going to try to put myself in your shoes because you're wrong and I'm right, right? Well, I'm not going to, have compassion for your situation, right? Because you live that way in which you are living the things that you are living, right? And it is, because I live the way that I live that I'm better than you. Those types of and sometimes it's overt in that way, but sometimes I think a lot of this is subconscious, you know what I'm saying? We differentiate ourselves and position ourselves in these types of ways. And that's been a real struggle for me, finding the balance between those subconscious tendencies and that imbalance, and but also not allowing the viewpoints of others to bring me out of or convince me otherwise of what my nature is, right? No one knows you better than yourself, right? And no one knows you better than your piece of God that lives within you, right? Some people refer to it as the higher self or the Ori. And I think that that is an important thing that one has to learn entering into adulthood. I think as children in our adolescence, we are easily mutable and adaptable, and we are very susceptible to influence of our parents, our family members, our friends, the overall social structure. But then what happens when you're an adult and, you live by yourself, for example, you have children, you have these goals, this vision. What happens when some of those ways in which you've been influenced don't fit or don't serve or add noise, add up extra frustration to what it is that you're trying to do? Well, at that point, we have to assess who it is that we believe ourselves to be in any given moment and to stand on that, right? You know, as we say, stand on business, right? And I think I wouldn't say this about everyone on a spiritual journey or everyone who engages in spirituality, but for those of us that are spiritual and naturally more receptive to energies, naturally in more of a inclination to help and heal, I think it can be difficult for us to learn how to do that, how to stand our own ground and to be who it is that we are, to be authentic. And one of the things that I'm so grateful for is that now more than ever in my life, even in conflicts with people, even when people are telling me how they perceive me, or, if I'm, saying something that they don't resonate with, or vice versa, you know, people telling me what I know, what I don't know, how I'm contradicting myself. It doesn't get to me as much. And it definitely doesn't change the way that I view myself anymore because of the hours and the hours that I have spent with me. And I got many more hours to spend with self, God willing. But I say that to say I'm just proud of how far that I've come. Because, it's just unpleasant. It's unpleasant to interact with the world and constantly feel, misaligned or, confused, uncertain. And not that I don't experience those things anymore, but that my ability to recenter is much more effective and much more efficient. And I feel empowered in my own self knowledge. And that's the way that it's supposed to be. We should have self assured, self conscious, or self confidence, I mean. Self assured, self confidence. That is to believe in your ability, not because of any external circumstances, but to believe in your ability because you have seen the fruits of your own labor. You have the evidence of your work. You have the receipts to your work. You understand? So that no matter what may be brought to you externally, you know what you know, and you're confident in that. But again, there is a balance to be kept to where we're not so full of ourselves that we're not receptive, to constructive criticism and to advice and to mentorship and coaching. I'm a very teachable person. I always have been. Right. I respect people with more knowledge than me, people, in a further place in life than me. Never really had much of a, respect problem when it comes to authority. Now I've had conflicts, within my family, for example. And there's extra energy that goes into that. But when it comes to, people out in the world doing what it is that I would like to do, or, you know, holding a specialization in an area of knowledge that I seek to gain, have no problem humbling myself and listening, being coached, being mentored. But, you know, where I do, I would say where this holding my ground comes into play is when I have people of the same age group, or I have people of the same level of consciousness, the same level of experience from my perspective. And I find myself, particularly when it comes to women, and intimate relationships, I find myself in contact with women who almost want to like tame me or fix me, guide me in some type of way without my asking. Right? And, I respect the divinity of the woman, especially the black woman, and her wisdom. Right? But I do have an issue with that. I do have an issue with that. And in these times of conflict, I always gain great clarity. But at the end of the day, it's not it's not what I would prefer. Right? And I think that's the thing about maturing as well, figuring out what it is that your preferences are. What do you prefer? What would you like? If we never have these experiences, if we never have these conflicts that challenge our perception, right, our level of self awareness, then we never figure out, what it is that we like and don't like. So, I'm very grateful, to say the least. And, I know that I'll continue to gain the wisdom around that. Um, because that's important to me, you know, continuing my legacy on this earth in the form of my own family. That's important to me. That's something that's high on my value list. Right. So I definitely know that the wisdom will come and that things will align as I continue to do the work that I need to do. But people are interesting, man. I think that we're a very complex creature, and we are contradictory, and multi-dimensional. And that's why I have such a big issue with the current system of being, because it doesn't allow for a person to be multidimensional, really, right? And I think it creates this dynamic to where, like, if I'm not able to be multidimensional and to have a complementary opposite nature within, if I'm not able to express that authentically, where in my work, right, in my creativity, um, or I should say in my work, in my education, right? How we go to school and begin to study a certain thing, right? And there's all these rules of how you have to behave and act. But then you get to college and you have to learn one thing and you have to specialize in that thing to get a job, you know, where you usually have, a specific set of tasks. You do one thing, right? And there's a code of conduct and a way that you behave. It's very monotonous and I think it definitely creates attention because then the only place that someone then could express this natural uh, dynamic nature is is at home, you know. But if we spend most of our lives at work and sleep or developing professionally in this way that we interact, we don't spend nearly enough time in that space of, our true nature, right? And I think in that space, right, in that space, right, the true balanced expression of that space of contradiction and complementary opposite that lives within, the human condition, right? This dance between the ego and the higher self, right? I think in the balance of that is where our creativity and our joy and play resides, right? So if someone is underdeveloped in their sense of joy and creativity and play, they get home after having to be in this box and, they explode or, they don't want to be bothered. Mm. And there's many different ways that manifests, particularly in the black community. But my point being, where do we have the space to be us? So it comes to a point where we have to create the space, right? We have to create the space for ourselves. And I think that that's important work. To me, the way that I see it, if we don't create that space for ourselves, we will continue to self-destruct and be destroyed by, the system, right? So I see it as warfare. I see it as the utmost importance when it comes to, our our community, our people, the world. You know what I'm saying? Nature. If we do not create the time to learn how to do things better and more in alignment with nature, we won't exist in nature anymore. You know, we will die off. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it is that I don't really know what to expect from the world or my people or you know the relationships that I have in my sphere. I don't, sometimes I don't know what to expect of myself. And I think a lot of this is trial by error, you know what I'm saying? Or trial and error. I mean, and you just have to experience it and go through it and learn as you go along. And I think that there's beauty in that, but the only thing that I would like to experience more of personally is more peace and stability and less like, chaos and conflict. I want to be able to interact with people in such a way that I just feel natural. I don't feel like I need to be any way in particular. You know, I've had to go and seek these experiences, and I have had them. I'm grateful for those, but I just want more of that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's what's on my mind today. I just wanted to, just vibe out in that space. So if you made it to the end, I appreciate it for hanging out with me and listening. Hopefully, you got some insight. And in the description here, I do have a link to, free journaling prompts. Got my ebook down there. Got, my SoundCloud, all my links, right? So if you wanna check some other things out, you can go ahead down in the description. But until next time, peace and blessings, and may you experience more of what you need in your relationships. Ashe.